Okay, hello. I want to welcome everybody to the Sacred Parenting Summit, where parents of adolescents are discovering ways to awaken personal power both within themselves and their kids. And today I'm here with Alena Hennessy, who intuitively and lovingly empowers people through creativity. So welcome, Alena.
Welcome. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm so
I'm
happy.
on the receiving end. I'm like, ah.
Well, I'm wondering if we can start by having you explain a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, I'm honored to be here with you, Adina. And I am an artist, and I also have, for 12 years now, full-time, and I also have an art therapy and art education background, although I primarily teach adults now. And I have 3 books on intuitive painting and mixed media and creativity. And I teach online classes to mostly women for healing and empowerment and intention, and also just for fun.
Yeah.
And do a lot of other things with my art, but yeah, that's a big chunk of it right now.
Yeah, wonderful. And as a participant in your courses, both in person and online, I've noted that art is the vehicle for the work that you do, but the spirit runs much, much deeper than that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I really believe that painting and art making is a metaphor for life and how we approach life. And there are phases to creativity I've noticed, which are really similar to the life's journey, our journey within our life. And one is we get really excited, really opened up. That's usually a childlike phase. The possibilities are endless. That's the feeling of youth. And then as adolescence comes along or a challenge comes along, we start to really doubt ourselves and think the work we do or who we are. We just have really a lot of negative thinking through social programming or family systems or whatever. And so schools, school systems. And so we have to unlearn a lot what we been taught by others, the external messages, so we can get back to our truth and our self-value and our connection to spirit and mystery. And what's so beautiful about the vehicle of painting or art making in particular is that it really is like serves as a channel where our mind gets to quiet and we get to just feel what we sometimes can't express through words. So that's why something like art therapy is such a powerful practice for children and youth, because it allows them to access feelings and release things onto the page and let the page safely take it without them holding on to it. So they get to let that go. And then at the same time, there's an intentional and a magic making process to get a little woo-woo that also happens in art. And it's just like a really beautiful practice that I find is soothing for the spirit.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. And I love the metaphor that it is a metaphor for life and compares to life in so many ways. And I'm wondering, how do you think art as a communicative or self-expressive tool can serve our relationships with others?
Can you expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah, how can we use art to communicate better, I guess, within our relationships? Or how can it be used as a tool that would then benefit our relationships to other people?
Well, for one thing, the main thing that it's done for me and others I know is it brings people together in a way that's a little bit of a different take on your question, but it forms a really safe and sacred bond. So if I'm doing art with my group of women friends or in a workshop, leading a workshop, there is something that happens between that group of women that we're connected in this beautiful way for the rest of our lives. So in a way, it's a relationship builder, as you're saying. And I think if it doesn't matter what age you are, that's what happens, I find. And even if, like, let's say my partner and I do art together, there's something that's really beautiful that it opens up in our relationship, a dynamic that again, it's like we get to really just experience something together without having to talk or do, like we're doing our own work side by side. It's just it's kind of to use the word sacred. I don't use that in like I don't know, to just lightly, but it does feel that way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, obviously the name of the summit is the Sacred Parenting Summit, because I believe that parenting is a sacred art. It's a very spiritual and transformational experience, and so is art making.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it fits, and I think that I love that you just mentioned creating together, not even collaboratively, but just side by side, even in presence with one another, is bonding in and of itself. And I think that's a huge takeaway. And you said before that art gives you a voice for things that you can't articulate with words. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be really powerful. Of course, there are many people who shy away from making art because they have that critic, or at some point along the line, somebody told them their artwork wasn't any good. And so they don't create. What do you say to those people who shy away from making art because they think that they cannot do it?
Well, first of all, that's really common. So it's totally understandable that you feel that way. For those of you who've read The Artist's Way, you'll be familiar with, like, once we have like a seed of doubt placed in our creativity in a certain media, in a certain genre or discipline, it stays with us for the rest of our lives. So if we have a teacher or a parent or an adult say to us, you're not really good at drawing, or you can't sing. Like I had the singing one. So I still have a concept about my singing voice. So I'm much more, even though I want to do it, I'm much more afraid to call a vocal coach because I'm afraid I will fail or I just won't be any good, and they were right. It's very ingrained, you know, and I think with art, we have to unlearn. But it's really important to try and be patient. And one thing that you have to remember, the more you are educated with your eye and the way that cultures and people throughout history of the world have made art, is there's no wrong way to do it. Art is a really, sure, there's a classical training way, but that's not what we're really focused on. And even that, you'll find your own style, you'll find your own way if you practice. So I think if you take that expectation off of yourself and realize that the way that you created as a child, before those doubts came in, you were working with spirit, you were collaborating with spirit. So it's to get back that way and trust your hand and trust the energy out of your hand. And the more unique it is, this is my experience with social media and things I've shared, the more original my work is to me. And the more that it's just what it comes through, and it's less I'm trying to be something I'm not, the more people feel that. I really believe in that reciprocity. Mm-hmm. So it's being patient and removing that judgment and just allowing that improvisation and that, well, I teach intuitive painting, but allowing that to come through and give yourself that gift, give yourself just that time and that freedom to say what it's like. What would it be like if I just tried, if I just keep showing up? But the thing is that's really important to remember with any art form is it takes practice and it takes consistently showing up. And the more that you do that, and that you do that through the spirit of non-judgment and acceptance, the more you will discover what's really inside of you that wants to come out. It's just like life. It's the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's about the process. It's about, and this is something I've gotten a lot of in working with your courses, but it's enjoying the process. It's being present in the moment of making. And I've had to let go of outcome sometimes. You know, you get attached to the way you want something to look. And when you cannot make that happen, it can be really frustrating, just like life. And something that I've learned so much from you is letting go of the outcome, being more fully present in the moment. And quite often when you're demonstrating a technique or a lesson or whatever, you'll create and you'll create and you'll create, and then there's this beautiful thing happening, and then you'll cover it up. And
Like,
how is she doing that? How can she do that? But what it's done for me is it's encouraged me to let go of the attachment that I have when making my work, and just go intuitively with how it feels, or experiment and see how it goes. And so going back to my original question, I think that if we just dive into the process too and let go of outcome or expectation, it's so much more fulfilling and so much more rewarding and fun and transformative, because it teaches you how to let go in other realms of your life as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And just like a quick thing to add to that is that part where I cover up and people are like, why do you do that? And well, I have learned that when I do that, it lets my expectation go. It's like a physical act where but that the magic comes in after that for me. It's a weird thing, because otherwise it feels too perfect and too contrived, and I am not looking for that. I'm looking for what feels authentic.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So it's like actually a way I trick myself into being more detached.
Yeah. And are you genuinely, you're just creating, you're just going as you move through those lessons. And that to me is really inspiring, because it's very raw, and you're like openly creating with, people watching you, even though they're not right there with you in the room, and just watching your process. And it's really cool to see. And I love I just love watching the spirit move through someone and unfold the way that it does. So that's really, really cool. And then just trusting myself too when I'm doing the same thing.
Well, you're an amazing artist, and it's been wonderful to witness you in your work.
Thank you.
How you are and how real you are. Like all I said is all that being recorded and sharing. Like the first time I gave a public talk, I could hardly like stand up before, but you get used to it, and with practice,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes more enjoyable, and that's why being patient with oneself is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that lesson translates so well to parenting. So I've noticed that you have collaborated professionally with your mother, and I think that's a really cool thing. Can you talk a little bit about how that came to be and how art has served your relationship with each other?
Yeah, well, she's a really talented artist. She's different than me. She's has a lot of patience for realism and classical work, and I'm more abstract, although I know she does like to do abstract work, but her real shining gift is this sort of timeless, like classic realism, I'll call it. And one thing, she was a mother. She had, primarily not an artist. Like she didn't have the time that I've had to be an artist. So she had 3 kids. I was the oldest, and then my parents got divorced when I was 12. So she had custody. So she spent her time being a mother, and her art got pushed aside for years.
Mm.
And I get that from her genetic, like DNA. And so to have her now at 70 years old, be able to retire from her corporate job and it just felt like she gave so much to her own parenting to us and nurturing the artist in me and my brother and sister, although my sister's more science-based and outdoor-based, but nature-based, I should say. So anyway, it's a beautiful thing to come back to her and honor her gift and to share. And we're working on a project right now that's really coming together beautifully. And it's going to come out later this year. And it really showcases how talented she is. And so cool. I'm just, it's really a full circle thing, and it's healing for us as mother and daughter. And it's really sweet. And we're funny, we did try and run like a gallery shop together, and we're much better in our own studios separately and then coming together because we just have a different way of relating to the world. I know, like, I've had a lot of my friends say, how do you work with your mom like that? I could never do. I'm like, well, she's really sweet, but that was hard because we have a different way. But this way, putting our art together collaboratively and just being both artists without the business side works really well for us. So that's coming out later this year. I'll just tell everyone we're making an oracle deck, and with honoring animal and plant spirits. So it's really sweet. Yeah. And
That's so
she's doing the
cool.
classical and I'm doing the design and background. It just works out kind of perfectly. So
How fun. That just sounds awesome. And you mentioned, you know, the event that happened when you were 12 and your parents splitting up. And one of the questions I did want to ask is, what was your adolescence like? What were your teenage years like? Simply because we are talking about that phase of life.
yeah.
And yeah, and I guess if you could go back and say something to yourself, what would you say?
Oh, well, this is why I get chills when you bring this question up, because this is why your work is so important, what you're doing. I wish, instead of getting involved with the cool crowd and going out and partying, and that was kind of damaging for me. I had to like work many years out of that, even though that's not my natural spirit. I'm very social in a certain way. I love to connect, but if I would have stayed more involved in art, visual art and drama, it would have made my years so much more enjoyable. It would have been more nurturing to my spirit. It would have been safer for me, would have kept me out of trouble. And it's what I really wanted to do. And so because my mom was like working full time and had my brother and sister and I think she was good with the arts, but she wasn't like overly pushing that. She was just letting us be who we are, being a liberal parent, you know. And I think if I would have just found art club and drama club and just totally immersed in that, I think, I mean, my adolescent years weren't horrible, but it's good that nothing like happened, you know, because you think about that when you start drinking or you start, it's dangerous. I think that, like, I can't believe I did that. And I know that's every parent's nightmare to their children. They want to be open, they want their children to express, but that's that rebellious. The arts is another way to go through that experience with connection and understanding yourself and finding out who you are without adding that danger, you know, dangerous element to it. So I really encourage parents, like whatever you can do to, because that would have been, I just would have enjoyed high school so much more.
What would have helped you connect to that? What do you feel like you needed at that time to stay connected to the arts?
I needed a social club or something where people outside of just the high school, I went to a huge public high school. So if I've gone to a smaller arts focused school or a smaller arts magnet school, that would have really been supportive. Or had a group that I could meet with my friends and we could do, I don't know, something like that, where that whatever that is that you need to get out and be social, you can do it through the arts rather than experimentation, you know?
Yeah. One of the things that I love to do is to facilitate art making workshops with teens.
That's so good.
And for it to not be a super directive process, but to give them just the space to socialize and create.
Yeah.
Without judgment, in a safe space. So it sounds like that's kind of what you craved at that time.
Oh, you would have been like a godsend if someone like you were in our community. And I mean, I don't know. I just feel like that's also, I'm a very empathic, psychic, intuitive spirit. I've been like that since I was little. That would have just been so much more safer for me. I think sometimes when children or adolescents are like that, they turn to drugs and alcohol because they don't know how to handle their feelings or their sensitivities, and they want to just make it through high school if they have a really huge high school like I did, that had a lot of money, you know, and like kids had access to, it was a big public school, kids had access to their older brothers, you know, in college collection of paraphernalia, whatever. That's what happens. And I think, and they all had cars and they had like phones in their car. I mean, it was just we had too much freedom in a way. So I think that would have been wonderful to have something like that and let that be cool. And I think hopefully kids now are realizing like it's not just cool to be, you know, I don't know. I have no idea. I think it's different in every area, but you know, but
I think it depends. And looking back on my adolescent years, visual art saved me. It was the thing that I had to turn to express myself because I had no other way.
Yeah.
But looking back, I've always been an artist since the time I was a child, like many people,
Yeah.
but never identified as one, in
Yeah.
part because, you know, my technical abilities, I was super critical of, or certain things didn't come easily or supernaturally. And so when I was in high school and thinking about a career path in college, I was discouraged from pursuing a career in the arts. Many people have heard you can't make a living doing that. That's not going to be financially viable. So find something more stable to go into. And so that got into my psyche. And so discouraged me from making art for many, many years as an adult. And I'm curious to know, you've had a super successful career in the arts. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about what your keys to success have been and what advice you might give to a young artist who wants to make a living through their creativity.
Well, there are definitely options because the world needs creative people more than ever for so much. I had a lot of concept too, but you know, it's really interesting, and that's why I avoided it too for a while. But then I got to college, and in fact, I had a workshop a month ago, and this was the story of 3 participants, my same story. My degree was in early childhood education. And that was a way to make a living and be a little creative. And I worked with kids for years. But then I took the art classes and I fell so in love with them. I'm like, and I kept taking more. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll be an art teacher. Oh no, I guess I'll be an art therapist. But then I was like, well, I have to get my master's to be an art therapist. So I'll just major in art because I need to take all these art classes. I could not stop taking them because something lit in me. But I always had that safe backup, like this is what I'm actually doing it for. And so then I ended up getting my master's in art education, not art therapy. But by the time of doing that for 16 years, working with kids in art and different educational settings where they had me teach, long story, but a lot of different subjects. I wasn't just an art teacher because they couldn't afford that. So the private school I was working for, but I did public school, I did all that. I was like, my spirit was just like, you just wanted to be an artist. And so I just tried one more time, or actually several more times, and just to do the business side, and it opened up miraculously. But yeah, there are different ways to be an artist and to make a living. I find that the people in my network, I mean, I've been doing it for over 12 years full time, but before that I was making my way little by little as an artist, not making much money, but working in arts admin or arts education or museums or whatever. But I think if you just really stick to your vision and your passion, you know what's true for you, spirit will speak to you. And through that discipline and that work, it'll find a way to open up. You have to be in tune with the business side if you're going to do just totally yourself, like instead of working for an organization or something. But there are a lot of possibilities. And also, we also need art teachers and we need art therapists. But I think there are ways to make it reflect for you. And this is my prayer and my hope, at least, for everyone. And that you can, just as you're painting, your career is your creative expression. So if I have to go and do this sort of hard work for a while, then that's part of it, but I can keep molding it and melding it till it reflects and is really true to my spirit. So it doesn't feel like work. It feels like my work is worship. They say that in India, where your work should be worship. So how can you show up, have your work be a form of worship and honoring and service to the grand design of things? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I honestly believe that that is a key to your success, because you learned to come at your work from this intuitive, spirit-based place where you were just following inner guidance, it sounds like, and doing it in a smart way and looking at the career as a creative act in and of itself. But when you come from that real authentic place where you're really doing what is in alignment with what you want to do and what your spirit calls you to do, success will follow. And success being defined as fulfillment and happiness.
It does, like I saw something today. I have a friend who is hugely successful. She came up with this idea called Lifebook, where it asks different artists to teach lessons. And so she's got like 60,000 members or so far. She's done it for 5 years. The first time she did it was really small. It's an online course. And she probably didn't make that much money, but she kept doing it and doing it, opened up. But she's posted this morning, and I thought it was so brilliant. I thought, this is really important thing to share. It's not about making 6 figures and running a successful business. It's about being fulfilled, being able to support yourself and fulfilled by your work. If you can, for me, for 10 years, I just paid my bills, and that was fine. But I was doing what I loved. I wasn't going into debt, but I was also paying my bills. Maybe I saved a little bit here and there, but maybe a couple years I wasn't able to save anything at all, but that's okay. Like, it's not about trying to make that money. It's about what can I do to live comfortably and simply, because I tell you what, if you're doing what you love, it doesn't matter if you're living really simply. It's like, that is such a gift, rather than sort of slaving to an organization that your soul kind of feels sucked by every day. And we've all had that experience. So if the 6 figures or the success comes, that's a gift, but that's not the goal. And I think you have to really understand what the goal is when you start out. Like, what is your goal? And it was always my goal, just to be able to support myself and do what I love,
I love that. I wish I had heard that 20 years ago. That would have changed the path of my life, which is not to say that I regret any of the choices that I made, because for me, 20 years ago, what it became about was being of service to others. And that was imperative for me too. But to hear as a young person, and particularly as a teenager, to make it about what I love to do and not about making money, my whole path would have flowed much more easily and with less stress. And interestingly, at that time, when I was an undergraduate in college, I took some art classes, and I remember someone saying to me, don't make art your career. You don't want to turn what you love into your career. And that's, to me, now, reflecting back, like the absolute wrong advice. You do want to make something you love your career, because it's something that you have to enjoy doing every day for, hours. Yeah. So thank you for that. So we're almost out of time, but I'm wondering if people are interested in your courses or finding out more about your books and what you have to offer, how can they connect with you?
Just find me online at alenahennessy.com, and got a bunch of courses and about a bunch of different subjects and intentions and different price points. And it's been like, and then the links to my books are there too on the website. So
wonderful. And you started doing retreats as well, correct?
Right. Yeah, I have retreats and workshops too.
Yeah.
Several times throughout the year, and I'm here in the Asheville area, like Adina.
Yeah.
So I actually have people come out to my land here, my studio, for the workshop bit, and that's another change. It's been really nice to just have people come here. I could show up better as a facilitator that way. So I'm really excited for you, and it's really been an honor talking to you, and I think you're doing really important, sacred work. So thank you. Thank you,
Alena. I appreciate that. Do you have any final thoughts or comments to share before we wrap it up?
So this summit's just for parents, right? To watch.
For parents of teens, yeah.
I think, here's something. I think if their art is really dark and really dark and really heady and kind of weird, don't worry about that. Let it be. I actually had a parent talk to me about that the other day. A friend of mine. That might continue on for a while, but they'll eventually get tired of that. But that's actually a good thing, that they're expressing that on the page and releasing it, because the world's pretty intense out right now, and teenagers are really sensitive to that and really aware of that. And if they are channeling it through the page, it's a really safe way for them to release some of that change in his hormones and all that growth that's happening. So don't be freaked out about that or try and suppress that. Just allow that, or discourage it. Allow that to come through. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I'm so glad you said that. And I responded immediately when you started talking, because as a school counselor, I can't tell you how many times student artwork or writing was brought to me from someone, whether a parent or a coworker or whatever, out of concern. Oh my gosh, this is really dark. This is it. And people get alarmed. And I've always viewed it as such a healthy outlet. It's just self-expression, and people need to let that stuff out.
They do.
It's not to say it's never a call for help, or it's never
exactly. That's different, right?
Right, but it's normal. It's not
it's really normal.
Yeah.
I remember being undergrad art school, and I was the only non-dark artist. I think I was just into colors and Matisse. It's not like I haven't had darkness in me, but I just express in a different way. More aesthetically, it works for me to release. But for art, it's more about honoring. That's just where I've been. But my boyfriend at the time, he was doing all sorts, and friends, like they had, and that was just what everyone had to do. They eventually outgrew that, but that's what they needed to get through to work out stuff. And it's very cathartic, and it's very healing, and it's very normal.
Absolutely. And I would say to parents that if their kid is creating this stuff, it's maybe also something to give them more of. Like you were saying before, you wish you had been led more into the arts. It might be just like, do you want to create more? What other opportunities would you like to have to creatively express yourself? Because it's obviously a way that your child utilizes to communicate or to process stuff. So.
And they need good mentors like you to help them constructively further and deepen that and advance that in a way that where it's not just, like where it can they can open up and see other possibilities to go with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they do need guidance. I do believe that too. So.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that so much. So anyway, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking with you today, and I encourage the people watching to check out your website and all that you have to offer. You're just a dream and wonderful and a gift to the world. So thank you so much, Alena.
Oh, thank you, Adina. Good to talk with you.
Yep. Bye.